The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of OLOS Media or its sponsors.
OLOS Media.
This is Cannabis Enlightened with Dr. Leroy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis Enlightened, where we firmly believe, as always, knowledge is power. And this program, as all of my segments are, brought to you by March and Ash. I'm your host, Dr. Leroy, coming to you through the technical genius of OLOS Media and the producers, JC and Lena. I am so happy to be with you on this happy Halloween day. And I have a really great guest with me today who I know is going to impart some very significant words, going to enlighten everyone, because he is, in fact, a CEO. And for those of you that want me to break that down, the Chief Executive Officer of a cannabis company, a very prosperous cannabis company out of Los Angeles, Traditional. So with me today is Alex Freedman, who's the CEO of a Traditional Cannabis Company, established back in 2005, I believe, that Alex will attest to, which it looks like you guys are going to be celebrating 20 years pretty soon. So I hope to be. Yeah, it went by quickly. So Alex, you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like you said, I'm the CEO of Traditional. We're one of the largest cultivation companies in California. Are well known by our brand name Traditional. We have a lot more going on behind the scenes of that. But like you said, we've been in the industry for almost 20 years now. Our founder actually has been growing cannabis and selling cannabis since he was a teenager, and is a true pioneer in this industry. I always like to tell people, tell them about Traditional. One of the first things I always loop them in on is that we actually have no investors whatsoever. We are a true legacy company, right? There's no Wall Street money behind us. There's no even friends and family. We're self-funded, which is what allows us to maintain our authenticity and maintain the values of the traditional market. And that's really the short story of what our name signifies, is that everything that's been great about cannabis, that people have spent their lives in cannabis, it's helped so many people. A lot of that has been lost as the industry transitioned to adult use and it got more corporate. And as we have no investors and nobody telling us what to do, we've been able to stay laser focused on maintaining those values, and that is Traditional.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Alex, as you may know, I taught the business of cannabis for several years before transitioning to March and Ash, and on the board. I'm on the board of Groundworks Holding. But one of the things that students would always ask every time they went to class is, what does it mean to lead a cannabis company? And I've had a few CEOs on the program, but that question always comes out. So, what do you do? What do you do as the CEO of Traditional?
Some days, or most days, I feel like I'm standing on the side of a hill dodging boulders falling from the top. It's a combination of air traffic control, putting out fires, and while trying to find some time to think about the future and plan and make our company better. There's really no day that's alike. I don't spend my day sitting behind a desk in front of a computer. I'm out at our grow facilities. I'm out visiting our customers, our dispensaries. I'm out meeting bud tenders, giving tours, meeting with vendors so we can launch new products, going to our farm in the Central Valley. And that's what a big part of what makes the job so enjoyable. As challenging as the industry is right now, as many difficult moments that we have to get through, it's still incredibly interesting. There's never a dull moment, and I've worked in have had other careers before cannabis, and the things I disliked most about it was just how dull it was. So I've been happy to trade the challenges and the stress of leading a big cannabis business in this day and age for the excitement and knowing that there's a lot better days ahead for this industry. As bleak as it can be, has been the last couple of years, the people who really love this industry and love the plant and are about the industry, we're not going anywhere. We know we'll ride this out, and that we're going to be the ones standing and at the head of this industry. And
Right.
that's what's always been so excited to be at part of a nascent industry, seeing all these people come in and not succeed, and that we held on, and building these relationships, like we have with March and Ash, where we're looking forward to being on March and Ash's shelves for decades to come. That's how we really think about it. We're just getting started.
There you go. Fantastic. Now, you've said some things that I'd like to unpack for the listening audience. You mentioned the dispensaries. So, how many dispensaries do you have? And you're out of LA, correct?
Yeah, so we're based mostly in LA. We have a number of cultivation facilities in LA and Adelanto. We're finishing a 160,000 square foot cultivation project in California City, which is outside of Lancaster. We also have a 36-acre farm in the town of Mendota near Fresno in the Central Valley, where we do outdoor cultivation under our brands Astronauts, and we're also about to turn on really incredible mixed light greenhouses. And then we have 4 stores in the city of LA. We don't really think of ourselves as a retail business. They're just licenses we've picked up over the years, and they're a great way to express the brand in a different way. But we've been really focused on partnering with other retailers to support them and to work in their store. So right now, Traditional and our other brands like Astronauts and Martians can be found in around 450 dispensaries across the state. So I often tell people we spend way less time on our own dispensaries thinking about it and focused on it than we do our third party dispensary partners. That's much more important to us, and we're never really going to be a retail business. It's just a nice little part of our business to have.
Right, right. So you're what we call a vertical shop because
Yes.
as you mentioned, that vertical means you do from seed to sale, correct?
We do everything ourselves. There's some companies that have some aspects of vertical integration and call themselves vertically integrated, but they're not really. For us, we breed all of our own genetics, right? So our OG strain that you can find in that yellow jar of ours, that's the same cut of OG that our founder's been growing for over 20 years. When we have a 50 light flower room in one of our facilities where all we use it for is R&D. We pheno hunt, we test thousands of genetics. So any strain that we bring to the market, we have bred ourselves through a multi-year process so that it is perfect, right? So even if it's a gelato or a biscotti or an OG that other cultivators and brands are offering, it's our version of it that we've bred 100 different versions of biscotti until we found the right one. We grow it ourselves, we process it ourselves, we package it ourselves, we distribute it ourselves. So
There you go.
there's nobody coming between us and the customer to get when that product is on the shelves, and we're never going to change that.
So for the customer to know that when they go in your shop and they buy a product that is
Mm-hmm.
your brand, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you have other brands too in your shops, but if they buy your brand, then
Mm-hmm.
you had your hands on it from the time it was put in the ground, harvested, you know, whatever comes manufacturing and happens to it to put it on the shelves, that's
Yes.
all traditional.
Yeah, just to give you another example of our vertical integration is our hash roll product that we have, which is an infused pre-roll that has live rosin in it and our flower, and it's all single source, meaning the flower in that pre-roll is from our facilities that was cultivated in that process I just explained. The rosin is rosin pressed from our own flower that matches the same strain of the pre-roll. It's pressed in a lab that we have in one of our facilities. It's then rolled by hand in our facility and packaged by us and distributed by us. So it's not just that it's our own genetics or we grow it in the facility. When we mean that we control every aspect of the process, we mean every single aspect of the process.
So Alex, what does the rosin do for the traditional roll, for rolling a cannabis joint? What does the rosin add something more to it? Is it
Uh,
stronger?
it does add a lot of potency. It creates it's a different type of high, compared to the flower. And the hash holes, the unique effect of that is something called a donut hole. So when we have the rosin, we kind of roll it into a kind of a strip, and we put it into the middle of the hash hole. So when the consumer is lights up the hash hole, they start smoking it. At first, they just hit the flower, but when they get about halfway down the pre-roll, they hit the portion that also has the rosin, and that creates this donut hole effect in the joint. And so you're getting this mixture of the flower and the rosin. Definitely very potent. It just also adds a whole different flavor profile to the experience.
So for the person that's just getting into cannabis, they should be careful as they.
It's definitely not for a novice. It's for a very experienced user who's looking for that type of high. Yeah, I can tell you the first time I tried the hash hole, it was higher than I've ever gotten before.
Oh, okay. Now, the other thing that I wanted to focus on just for a little bit is people are always wondering when I used to teach it, do I have to come from a cannabis background to be in cannabis? And I noticed that you come from a particular career that is maybe completely divorced of cannabis, right?
If you're referring to the fact that I'm unfortunately a lawyer by background, you are correct. I do have a very unique path into cannabis. I was working as a lawyer for many years. I ended up joining the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office in 2016. And about a year after that, after the state had, the voters of the state had adopted Prop 64, the city of Los Angeles decided to fully embrace cannabis legalization and create the largest municipal adult use market in the country. And I was fortunate to be selected to be the attorney to draft all of LA's cannabis laws. And then I helped launch and establish the local licensing agency in LA, the Department of Cannabis Regulation. And it was an incredibly fascinating experience. We were building the airplane as it was flying, as one way to put it. So I was there at the very beginning of adult use in Los Angeles when we were issuing the very first licenses. I helped build much of the licensing framework and issued hundreds of licenses myself. So I saw the industry as a regulator first, and I fell in love with the industry through that lens. And it really opened my eyes about the unique challenges the industry faces from the regulatory perspective. And after a couple of years in that regulatory role, I decided to join the industry. And I had a number of options of people to work with because of my unique experience. And I ultimately chose traditional because I had seen from inside government and after I left so many different companies, and I really saw that traditional had all the intangibles and something I wanted to be a part of. So I definitely I understand, I think, pretty uniquely the challenges the industry faces dealing with all these regulations and all the roadblocks that put in place, and honestly, how unnecessary so many of these regulations are, and how they were drafted and conceived by people who truly knew nothing about cannabis or the cannabis industry. I don't say that to be dismissive of the regulators, because I was once one myself, and I know how challenging it is to be a regulator, but it's just the stark reality of the process is that it never really been regulated before in most jurisdictions, and so the people entrusted to regulate it were mostly working in the dark, and that's a lot of reasons why we are facing the challenges we are now.
Yeah, you hit on something very important, something I wanted to discuss with you: the regulations that exist right now. Since you opened the door, I'm going to go on in there a little bit. Do you see an end to well, in your mind, are the regulations meant to help or to hurt, to delay the industry? How do you see that, the regulations, as it pertains to the cannabis industry?
That's a very complicated question. It's one I've thought about for a very long time. Um, I think I, I think there was a lot of copy and paste in these regulations. So as the first jurisdictions established regulations that hadn't really been tested, regulators and policymakers in other jurisdictions simply just more or less took the same frameworks, did minor modifications. So I think that's been one source that it really hadn't been thought through, but there was also limited opportunity for it to be thought through to see how it played out in action. I think there's also because people wanted legalization so bad, whether it was activists, industry advocates, policymakers, they were willing to do whatever it takes to get legalization. So they made a lot of trade-offs to convince the critics and opponents to accept it, right? So an example of that is in California. To get Prop 64 passed, one of the biggest, most important things of Prop 64 was local control. To tell all these cities and counties that despite the state legalizing cannabis, we're going to leave it in the hands of the local communities to decide whether cannabis should be there. And that was really important to hold off very influential opposition to Prop 64. So it was a trade that needed to be done to get this passed, but we're now living with the consequences of it, where despite a vast majority of Californians saying that they want free, safe, and accessible cannabis, I think as we stand right now, there's probably, I think, over 60% of the cities in the state still have a complete ban on cannabis, which was not the point of legalization. So that's an example of, trade-offs that had to be made just to even be having this conversation.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's very hard to undo regulatory structures once they're in place. And I think it's a long road ahead of us to get reform. And unfortunately, it's going to be a very painful road to get reform.
Alex, do you think that more community involvement may help to change that?
Yeah, I think that the community involvement leading to more education among policymakers and the community level to eliminate the stigma. What I used to always tell people as a regulator when they would complain about legalization was that there's going to be cannabis in your community whether it's legal or not.
Okay.
Like, this wasn't invented in 2016. There's always been cannabis. One of the major points of legalization is this, so that it can be brought out into the open, so it can be regulated, so it can be taxed, so it can be kept away from kids, so the products can be tested and not filled with pesticides. And so when people are screaming about a dispensary opening in their city, I want them to understand cannabis is still being sold in your city. Regardless of whether you allow licensed dispensaries and delivery services. So wouldn't you rather get some of that tax revenue? Wouldn't you rather make sure that it comes out of the unlicensed market and it goes in, and you can make sure that it's accessible and people can buy product that they confidently know has been tested and clean? It's very challenging to overcome that stigma because we've had a century of prohibition that has brainwash people into thinking that a natural product is the greatest menace to society. Whereas everyone will gather around and watch the Super Bowl and are bombarded with alcohol ads for a product that does 100 times more damage to society than cannabis.
Hey, this is a great place to take a break. We'll be back with more of the show right after this.
Mixed Grounds Coffee, founded in 2020, is where culture brews community. Located in San Diego's Logan Heights district, this Vietnamese-owned micro-roastery brings you the world's finest beans, roasted in small batches. Mixed Grounds is proud to present I just wanted to push record on the Olas Media Network, celebrating arts, community, and culture.
The Dear San Diego podcast is produced in collaboration with The Times of San Diego. Repeatedly recognized by the San Diego Press Club, The Times of San Diego delivers timely and transparent news to, for, and about America's finest city. To learn more on how you can support this trusted resource of information, visit timesofsandiego.com. Like we talk about in the show, there are a lot that goes into a successful podcast, more than just pushing record. Whether you're new or seasoned, if you're looking for someone to make your great show idea a reality, then we've got your back. Check us out at olasmedia.com and see how we can help you push record on your next big project. Hey, let's pick up where we left off. Back to the show.
So you are touching on so many of the topics that I wanted to get your opinion on, along with regulations, and you kind of danced a little bit around the illegal market. Okay, what is the illegal market, or what is it doing? What has it done for your business?
Well, I think there's a couple effects. One, we're a brand. We want to put all of our product into a package and sell it at a licensed dispensary. We need strong retail partners like March and Ash. So anything that hurts the business of our retail partners, it hurts us very directly. And what we've seen is, this has been a problem since legalization. I dealt with this when I was a regulator in the city of LA. We had hundreds, if not 1,000, unlicensed dispensaries around LA at the turn of legalization, and it's still a problem today. And unfortunately, there's no easy answers. No one really wants to, recriminalize cannabis and have a very heavy-handed law enforcement approach. At the same time, when there's no consequences and people can make money, they're going to take you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So we feel the effects that way. In the last couple of years, we've definitely felt the effects of the burgeoning unregulated hemp industry, where you have hemp companies and brands that are offering intoxicating products that are untaxed, unregulated, that you can buy them in gas stations and smoke shops, and that's taking an enormous amount of business from licensed dispensaries who've been playing by the rules, paying their taxes. Thankfully, the state of California is taking some action. Governor Newsom pushed forward emergency regulations to ban the sale of intoxicating hemp. And I know going into next year, the California legislature is going to hopefully pass comprehensive legislation to regulate intoxicating products and bring it into the regulated market. This isn't about saying there shouldn't be hemp products or intoxicating hemp products. Myself and many others in the industry simply feel that if you want to sell something that is derived from the cannabis plant, whether you want to call it cannabis or hemp, and it's intoxicating, it needs to go through licensed regulated channels. So there shouldn't be any separate market that's unregulated where people can have advantages over licensed dispensaries and all the additional costs that come with running those businesses. So I think ultimately, until there's federal legalization and interstate commerce and cannabis businesses can operate as normal businesses, it will continue to be a problem.
Alex, do you have any opinion with respect to the purity of illegal products? Are they, in addition to them not being taxed and not being regulated, would you say that there's perhaps a danger in the public buying products that don't come from legal dispensaries like yourself and like March and Ash?
Absolutely, without a doubt. When you see news articles and press releases from the state and other law enforcement agencies on the raids they do on unlicensed grows, one of the things that always comes up is they show the images of the pesticides that they're using. They're using rat poison. They're using things that were banned 60 years ago because they're so dangerous. You are taking your health in your own, putting it at risk every time you're purchasing and consuming products from the unlicensed market, because they cut every corner imaginable. So it's unfortunate that that a lot of people who are buying those products may not be aware of it. And the industry and the regulators need to do as much as they can to continue to spread the message about the risks of purchasing and consuming unlicensed products.
Sure. There's something else that you talked about a little bit earlier, and it was about the use of cannabis and also, looking at alcohol. Are
Mm-hmm.
you of the opinion that cannabis is medicine or just another vice, like an alcohol, like a bourbon?
No, I really don't see cannabis as a vice. I've had the privilege of meeting thousands of people through this my journey in the cannabis industry, who have who've had their lives changed by cannabis. From somebody who has been able to deal with horrible effects of chronic illnesses, and be able to have a functional life because they can, well, the benefits and effects of cannabis. I see people who have been able to manage problems in their lives that they otherwise would have turned towards vices like alcohol, like hard narcotics, and by having cannabis available, they're able to find the relief they need and not turn to those other substances. It's everybody needs a way to relax, and if you're laying out the options to people otherwise have to find that relief from alcohol, pharmaceuticals, um, food addiction, you name it. When you line all those up and you put cannabis in there, um, I'd probably pick cannabis as the least of all harms from that. And when you add in the medical benefits, it's a no-brainer, right? You don't ever hear from somebody saying, my family member who's dealing with terminal illness, that we're sitting there and giving them alcohol to ease their pain.
Yeah.
Right? It's cannabis.
Yeah.
Right? When someone says I have a chronic illness, I don't think I've ever met somebody who said they treated it with a pint of vodka. Right? But I've lost count of the people who said that they have gotten their lives back because cannabis has solved their problems in a way that the most expensive pharmaceuticals never could.
Are you noticing any consumption changes? How people are consuming cannabis. Yeah, I get this question all the time. Most people, all they see is, well, I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't like the smoke, so I'm not going to be able to consume cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to see so many more consumer options come out of legalization. If you walk into any good dispensary, licensed dispensary in the state, you're going to be able to find something to consume cannabis in a way that's it's going to work for you. If you don't want the smoking, the endless options in edibles or tinctures, or vapes. If you don't want to vape, there's endless options to smoke. There's the concentrates, and I think we're only scratching the surface. I think, unfortunately, because of prohibition and the lack of any movement at the federal level, we really haven't had the opportunity to do meaningful research on additional ways to deliver cannabis and consume cannabis. So we're just getting started. I think as a cannabis brand, that is one of the biggest challenges, is to be able to forecast a pretty rapidly moving consumer taste in cannabis. And we saw certain types of products that a year or two ago were all the rage, and then everybody invests in bringing similar products to market, and then somebody else has come up with something that's the new trend. And it's I think that we're going to keep seeing stuff that you and I couldn't even foresee talking today about ways to consume cannabis. I think the beverage market is only getting started.
Sure.
It's, I think we're talking 10 years from now, we're not going to be able to recognize the industry.
Right. The other day I saw some potato chips.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I always feel those are the most dangerous ones. Like potato chips are addicting enough. Like how are you gonna stop eating that whole bag? Like you're taking a big risk there.
Yeah. You have a point there. You have a significant point. We're also talking about the future, and I think since we have a CEO here, it's really good to get your perspective on, where are we going? Because we're in an election year and everybody's promising to do almost everything and anything. But from where you sit and how you see things, where do you think we're going with this in the future?
As a brand, we really see that being the future.
Mm-hmm.
California, because we've been, one of the early states to go adult use, we see how the industry has evolved. And what I've noticed is that every subsequent state that's legalized, it goes through a very similar growth pattern where there's, it's limited licenses, limited product, everyone's making a lot of money, everyone comes in the industry, access expands for the customer, prices go down, customers start discovering brands and developing loyalty. And we've seen that in California. So many brands that were here a year or two ago have completely left the market because they couldn't provide everything that a customer would expect from a consumer packaged brand. So I think as the federal legalization eventually comes, as more states legalize, even as it goes around the rest of the world, customers, they're not going to want to have to pick between 100 different brands. They're going to find their brands where it becomes like a Coca-Cola, where no matter where you go in the world, if you order a Coca-Cola or another example, a Big Mac or a Starbucks coffee, you're going to be delivered that consistency, right? What you're paying for, you're going to get what you expect. You're not going to open up a traditional jar and get a completely different strain because we control that. So this isn't about making it corporate, but it is about making it consistent, right? So for traditional, we're about that authenticity, but doing it at scale with that modern day consistency of a brand. And that's really what a customer wants. Look, if you're a regular person, you work hard for your pay, inflation's crazy, costs are going up. Right. You can't afford to buy a cannabis product and not get exactly what you expect and deserve. So the companies and the brands that understand that and focus on that and are able to deliver on that, that's where the industry is going. It's going to be the same on the retail side too, right? Like there's so many options for stores, but they're all selling the same products for the most part, but it's the experience. It's the consistency. It's the, why do you go to this supermarket over that one? Mm-hmm. Because you get a great experience. You know what you're going to get. You know the products that you want are going to be there. It's almost muscle memory, right? When I go to my regular market, I know exactly what aisle to go to get my product. I know I'm not going to have any problems finding what I need. And sure. As on the retail side as a brand, that's what's going to be big. And I think that's great for everybody. I think that's great for customers to always have access to great and affordable product. I think it's great for the industry that the strongest operator can continue to work together and support one another and not allow outsiders to come in and monopolize the industry, which we've seen attempted to happen over the years. And it's really not what we're about, and many people left in this industry are about. And I see that as the future.
True. Listen, I want to stop here and thank you very much, Alex, for your time. As you mentioned at the beginning, you got a lot of things to do in the course of a day. Imagine that on a Friday and a Halloween day, you even have even more than that to do. So I want to appreciate your time and I know after hearing you, the audience is going to say, how can I get in touch? Am I able to get in touch with him? So is there some way that the audience may be able to somehow connect with you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram, traditional.alex. You can find us traditional.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can come visit our stores. You can find our products around the state, including all March Nash locations. So even if you don't want to hear any more from me, I hope you at least want to try some of the products now. So, definitely head out to one of the March Nash stores if you're in the San Diego region, and we're in all the other great dispensaries in other regions of the state. And it's hard to miss our products. They're very bright and colorful packaging, and ask any bud tender, and they should be able to help you get one of our products.
Okay, and I would imagine that from time to time you find a little bit of spare time to come to San Diego, and if you do, please get in touch with me.
We absolutely will. We've had the privilege of touring all the March and Ash stores with the ownership group, and we recently hosted a very large group of March and Ash managers to tour our cultivation facility in downtown LA. So we're going to continue to see a lot of each other, and hope to see you on one of those visits.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate your time. And
yeah, it was great. It's great to be on.
That does it for this particular episode. This is Dr. Leroy with Cannabis Enlightened, asking you to always remember that knowledge is power. And to listen to this episode and all of the Cannabis Enlightened episodes, take the time to log on Olus Media to cannabisenlightened.com. And feel free to reach out to me to write a letter, email, tell me what you like or what you don't like at dr.leroy@cannabisenlightened.com. And as I said, remember, knowledge is power.
Thanks for listening to Cannabis Enlightened. Be sure to follow and subscribe whenever you listen to your podcasts. To read the blog associated with this episode, visit olasmedia.com. This episode was produced in studios located in San Diego, California and Tijuana, Baja California. Creative director Ulises Breton. Sound engineer Alan Glespar. Producer Lena Alvarez. Serving as executive producer and co-founder is JC Polk, and Chad Peace is president and co-founder. Olas Media is an IVC media company.
Olas Media.